Hey there. Howdy, howdy. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode 5 of Talking Watercolor. Gotta look at the camera. All right, I think I established in episode 4 that episode 3, it went bananas, had like 1,500 views. And episode 4, I think we're sitting around 345, 350 views on that one. So episode 3, I don't know. I think is the topic. We were talking about some fun stuff, and I know what I did. I think I misposted. I didn't post my episode 4 to the podcast category either, so maybe I lost some views that way. So if it didn't go as crazy as episode 3, it's probably my own fault. So anyway, we'll hopefully get it right this time when I post this episode out to YouTube. Hey, we had some good comments from my cherry video this week, and I think I had a couple maybe comments from episode 4 as well. And that's something we could definitely talk about today. One person was mentioning that they thought it was interesting that my gradients weren't as smooth as maybe they envisioned or thought they would be. So that got me thinking about the whole issue of smooth gradients in watercolor, and they're definitely possible. You can definitely get those nice soft transitional colors and tones across the surface, but make sure you're doing it with your wet on wet technique. So whatever you're doing, you got to drop that color. And to avoid blooms, remember the moisture you're adding to the paper can't be wetter than the paper itself, or you're going to get those flower blooms into the shape that you're adding into. So just keep it a little thicker than the paper, and you should be all right. Depends on when you drop it in as well, how wet or dry that paper is. Various things to practice. Go back and watch my States of Watercolor video that I made way back 3 or 4 months ago, and also watch the drawing perspective tutorials as well. I did drop some drawing tutorials this last week and a half, drawing circles, drawing squares, drawing triangles and cones and things like that. So these are, like I said, rock bottom basic tutorials, kind of get you up to speed with shapes. And again, I can't stress enough how important just getting a handle on the foundation shapes and then being able to translate those shapes into 3D form. And I'm doing circles very intently, mainly because I think if you can get that circle to transform into a three-dimensional form on a 2D piece of paper, you're about 3/4 of the way there. Cubes are easy enough. Just make sure you understand your perspective and play around with that, whether you're above the eye line or below the eye line or sitting right on the eye line. Positioning, all of that comes into play. So watch those videos, get in there and get started on there. But back, damn, that was a sidebar. Back to the question was smooth blends. All right, I'm doing that on purpose, mainly because I've mentioned this in the past. I'm a recovering photorealist. Everything I used to do was very hyper realistic, and for me, it just got boring over the course of about 30 years. It's like, I've done that. I can do it, but it takes more time than I'm really interested in investing into it anymore. So definitely, I'm trusting the viewer's eye to read the form correctly. So I'm creating enough of an illusion to let the viewer see it as three-dimensional form. And it's more impressionistic and a little looser. It's a lot looser actually, and it's kind of led me to be able to explore other subject matter that I may not have been willing to explore with my previous techniques and way I used to paint. So watercolors really, I think, opened up the door for a lot broader subject matter. And I've mentioned this in the past, I think even in the last video, where landscapes are a pain in the butt. And I avoided them for years. I hated landscapes. And it wasn't until I picked up watercolor that it really opened up the opportunities for me to explore landscapes and scenes like that I would never have considered without learning this medium. So definitely take your time, practice any of the skills we're developing here, and don't think that they have to be photographically smooth either. Just smooth enough to convince a viewer when they're looking at your piece that it's three-dimensional. Let's see here. I had a good comment about how do I choose or know what colors to use. Well, have your color wheel handy. And keep in mind, shades, shadows are cool, so just tend towards mixing blues and cool colors into whatever color if you're creating a shadow for that color. That just automatically does the job. I guess one of the comment was, how do I choose? Why would I choose blue or purple over rather than brown or adding Payne's gray, the shade into it? And one of it's just it maintains adding blue into it, just cools off the color. It doesn't diminish the saturation of the red. It just transforms it into that color wheel. It's that harmonious color that will maintain the saturation of the color. Whereas if you mixed in a brown has a yellow in it, which is going to start neutralizing the color. So if you want to keep your color nice and rich, you want to go to that cool and mix it in, rather than adding the contrasting color into it that's going to neutralize it. And then if you mix in the Payne's gray or black, you're just adding a shade into it. So it desaturates the color. So it'll take that nice saturated red and it'll start making it more of a dirty red and almost start reading as brown itself. So kind of a muddy looking red. So anyway, that's one reason or why I'm using the blue. Just keep in mind, blues are cool, highlights are warm, and it's a good rule of thumb. Have your color wheel handy so you can refer to it and look over. Keep in mind, work with those harmonious colors. Any 5 touching colors on your color wheel, everything will look really good. So I guess the cherry tutorial was a little more challenging than I might have led to believe, but it is a beginner level. So it just means you're going to have to practice it a few times and practice all of these fundamental shapes, and like the oranges, practice that. I'm going to be dropping some more circle tutorials and focusing on other surface qualities to the sphere as well. So you're not just creating three-dimensional form through the lighting, the way the light strikes the surface of the sphere and travels across with your highlight, your tone, your shadow, your core of the shadow, your refracted light, and cast shadow. But we're going to start working with reflective qualities, which the cherry had a little reflective quality to it. So there was a surface difference. So it wasn't just a plain, smooth, lit sphere. It had a sheen to it. Plus the water drops. And then we'll work with fuzzy shapes, soft edge things, and practice that. So that's definitely going to be more wet on wet. Probably do some peaches with a nice fuzzy, and that'll definitely be some color transitions, a lot of wet on wet in that. Maybe a tennis ball, various types of objects in a spherical shape that just gives you the skills that you can use when the time comes and you want to do those nice compositions. And like I said, definitely I can see the impact. These little tutorials, I need to make them a little shorter probably. They don't get the viewership as the scenes do, but that's okay. I want to create a bank of short little videos for all these various skills that you're going to have whenever you're painting. So like I've done the rabbit, and well, that was just a short. I messed up on my rabbit. So the rabbit was supposed to be a full-length tutorial, but I didn't have my autofocus was turned on, so it kept focusing on my hand rather than the paper. So I screwed that up. I had to do some fast editing for the short. And Anyway, those are my woes as a beginner YouTube content creator. Got to get all my technology set correctly. So, so yeah. I'm going to be dropping. I'll do another this week. I'm going to do several probably. Working with still lifes, and again, I'm kind of modeling this off of my my watercolor class and my drawing class, where we do a lot of still lifes just to build skills, and putting boxes and shapes and paper bags and glass bottles, clear bottles, painted bottles, all sorts of stuff out there just to build your visual vocabulary with all these various objects. And I'm going to be doing one concerning symmetry. I did a little tutorial in one of the, I can't remember which one it was, one of my drawing tutorials about symmetry. There's some tricks where you just do elliptical rings and build that shape up, almost like you're spinning it on a potter's wheel. And it gives you the guidelines that you can then come in and draw the outer edges and get the shapes pretty symmetrical with some practice. Again, oh man, you poor guys, you're having to suffer through my chance of practice that I tell my students all the time. So it really is. It's the amount of time you invest in practicing these simple things that will lead to a really good success when you start doing the big things. Because, you don't walk in and start playing in an orchestra. You got to practice all your scales and learn all your notes before you can go into that orchestra pit and play that symphony. So we are going there. Let's see here. We have probably do another. Oh, I'm going to do some ink drawings, I think, coming up real soon. Those will be fun. It's a different way of having to describe form and tone, because with ink you either are making a line or you're not making a line. There's no pushing down pressure sensitivity for a light mark or a dark mark. So it's either black or it's white. So it's very binary, and etchers and printing companies have been using this technique, line is value, for centuries. So it's definitely doable. I love line art and ink drawings. They're a lot of fun. And you would think, and surprisingly enough, I've noticed this in my drawing classes with students. I'm trying to think. I always myself thought ink was probably a little more difficult than pencil. But I've actually seen a lot more success with students who may have been struggling with pencil drawing, but boy, they cut loose and are really able to go after it with pen and ink. So who knows? I'll do a couple of tutorials with maybe some structures, trying to work in that 3D form of a square into a cube and make a building, and do one with more organic shapes by maybe drawing a bird. Back to birds. So I kind of have a shtick, don't I? So anyway, that's what we'll be working on, and that's going to be dropping in the next week or two. I've got to build up a bank of projects, because I'll be teaching in June a bunch of 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. We'll be teaching animation, and I'll have them in class for 6 hours a day. So I won't have my afternoons to work on this to get pieces ready. So I need to create a bank of projects that can get me through 3 weeks while I'm doing my summer course with these youngsters. So it's always fun to do the animation course. It's a cell frame animation, so they're drawing everything by hand and then photographing it with their cameras and then editing and creating the animations in their cell phones. So it's amazing to work with. I've been teaching this summer course with these kids for about 20 years now, so it's been a lot of fun. Anyway, that is, I think, everything that was dropped into the comments from last week. And yeah, that's my story. So if you got any value out of today's episode, definitely give me a like and hit the subscribe button. I can't think of anything else, so I will say see you later, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week in episode 6. Bye.